Okay, this one moved a little bit over the weekend. Georgia and Notre Dame going down to New Orleans to clash in the Sugar Bowl. Not the first time that's happened. Everybody remembers the 1981 Sugar Bowl where Georgia won the national championship. Didn't really play well in that game, but they won it 17-10. Herschel Walker along the way. Buck Blue, one completed pass. I think we're going to see more completed passes than that this time. But Georgia, a very narrow 2.5 point favorite over the Irish. They were a 1.5 point favorite going into this weekend, which I'm not sure I completely understood, but the line moving 4 points towards Georgia once it was secured that Notre Dame and the Dogs would play in New Orleans. I think I think the line movement was right. I understand this game being at 2.5, and I'll explain that right now. First of all, if you just take your rose colored glasses off, easy enough for me to say. Georgia's starting this game without Carson Beck, who has been the starting quarterback at Georgia for 25 games or whatever it's been. They're going to have to transition into Gunnar Stockton, a guy who led them to the second half comeback against. I keep wanting to say LSU. I know it was Texas, but I keep wanting to say LSU. Second half comeback over Texas in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium for the SEC championship game. Mike Bobo and company, Kirby, Mike, everybody, they're going to have 3.5 full weeks to get Gunner and this offense ready for a Notre Dame defense that's pretty good, okay? It's a pretty good defense. If you're going to sit here and act like they're not good on defense, you know what? I will say this about Notre Dame, okay, in the defense. They have played... that I'm aware of, they have played one sort of truly explosive offense this season, and that's SC. And SC definitely scored on them, no doubt about it. SC scored on them, but with that said, all you can do when you go out there, and let's two things. First of all you can do when you go out there is play defense against the people who are in front of you. That's number one. Number two, let's not act like Carson's out there for Georgia anymore, because he's not. And so, this is a pretty good Notre Dame defense. But SC scored 35 on them. And I was at home for it was in Los Angeles, I should say, to keep things easy. This is the number 6 total defense in the country. But again, they've not faced a lot of really talented skill position folks. Texas A&M at the start of the season. A&M is a good team. They do not have the weapons. They don't have ETN. I would say just that's what I would say about Texas A&M. And I think that SC is the best situationally. I think even SC might have more firepower than Georgia in this moment. However, with all of that said, Notre Dame's going to have a hard time scoring on Georgia, if I had to guess. This is an Irish offense that is pretty, pretty diverse. I mean, they can run it, they can throw it. They're not. They are more balanced than they are good at one thing, and I think that leads to itself, right? I mean, if you look just statistically, Notre Dame would statistically probably be the best team in the country. I mean, there's just not a lot of teams that are just top 10 total offense, top 10 defense, top 5 rushing defense, top 15 passing defense, top 15 passing offense, top 10 rushing offense. I mean, that's really good. Like, all that stuff's really good. And that's all there is to it. But again, everybody wants to talk about Northern Illinois. I mean, that's like talking about the Tennessee Tech game. It's completely irrelevant. It doesn't matter. I mean, the Indiana game's not going to matter. Just the same way the Texas game for Georgia won't matter. What will matter is what happens in New Orleans. And I think Georgia matches up well. I think the capability of Georgia's offensive line will be should be something they lean on with the combination of that, ETN, and now a real threat running the ball from Gunnar Stockton. Okay, got a lot in the weeds there. Let me just say some of these other lines that are out there. And while I flip the screen, make sure you're going to Red Zone. If you're watching this, you're almost out of time. They will be open until 2 o'clock on Christmas Eve. Where is Red Zone? It's downtown in Athens on Clayton Street. You can run down there. You can eat at Last Resort. You can eat at Chick-fil-A. You can eat at The Place. You can eat at South Bar. There's a million places down there to go eat. We hit up Eurowrap a lot because that's the way we roll. So, and we like the place a lot as well. Just know with no compensation there, but and no real compensation from Red Zone other than go get stuff. I showed this on this last video. This time I'm not going to stand up. This is a sort of interesting stuff that they've got there. Check it out, man. It's well worth the trip to Athens if you're taking a trip. It's awesome. It's time to go down there. Hey, 10.5 points. That's how much Penn State's favored over Boise by at the Fiesta, a place that Penn State won a national championship over Miami in 1986. I believe their last national championship. Texas, 13.5 over Arizona State. That game's in Atlanta. Welcome to, Texas going to be in Atlanta a lot in the near future. In Pasadena. So that's not Fridays. The New Year game, the New Year's Eve games, they don't look like they're going to be great games. But we'll see. And then, Ohio State, Oregon in the Rose. That's the 4 o'clock kick. 5 o'clock? What is it? It's a 5 o'clock Eastern kick. Someone can correct me on that. Yeah, it is 5 o'clock Eastern. Excuse me. And then, so Ohio State's favored in that game, and which I would put them favored too. They're 2.5 point favorite. And then Georgia 2.5 over Notre Dame. I would almost say both Ohio State and Georgia, I could understand if they were favored by a little bit more. I would not let this get to 4. I think then you're starting to talk about value situations. And of course, if we're betting, let's be responsible and not go nuts on this stuff. This is for fun. The other thing that's been just going whack job, and it's I guess it's settled down. I went to the grocery store a little bit ago. And like the numbers on these to win the national championship are just like, I'm not saying they're making no sense. Georgia and Oregon are tied as the third best bet at 480. If Georgia wins against Notre Dame, you can see their odds go up a lot. That other side of the bracket is blood sport. So Texas is the favorite to win the national championship right now with at plus 310. Ohio State at plus 330. Then you get down to plus 480 for both Georgia and Oregon. Penn State just behind that at plus 500. And then Notre Dame at plus 700. I want to say I saw this where Georgia was the 5th betting favorite or 6th earlier today. So this is going wild, and it's hard to take seriously. I do want to say that I don't think there's a team that is a betting favorite to make it to the national championship game, unless it's Texas, which it is not. So that also has to be taken into consideration. Penn State has narrowly better odds, like very small, to make it to the national championship game better than Georgia, but that's probably because they're a 10-point favorite. Well, that's certainly because they're whatever it was. What did I say? 10? They are a massive favorite. They're 10.5 point favorite. I don't know if Penn State will have a better situation than they did the other day playing SMU and a quarterback that just was out of sorts. So they won't have their vaunted whiteout, which is the most overrated thing in sports besides the Grove at Ole Miss. But I expect Penn State to win that game. We'll just see. I don't know. And then they'll get a shot at the Notre Dame Georgia winner. I think Georgia Notre Dame winner is probably going to win. Going to play in Atlanta, but we'll see about that as well. But it's an exciting time. We're getting ready for Christmas, thank God. And in about a week we'll be in New Orleans covering the team well ahead of time on Sunday. I think the game is on Wednesday. It's not like it used to be for us where the game is on Wednesday. It's not like it used to be for us where you were down at the bowl site for a week. But the college football playoff has changed that for us. But I think 2.5. I thought Georgia being the underdog. I did not understand that. I understood them being the underdog to Texas in Atlanta. I thought it got too high, but I understood that. Like, what bothers me, just as a human, is like as a person that sort of psychopathically follows these lines, is I want them to make sense. And like, for me, lines have to, like, if something looks off, I never thought Texas should have been a 4.5, 4.5 or 5 point favorite over Georgia. And it got like that going up in Austin. I mean, Georgia won that game by 15. In Atlanta, it was not dissimilar. But I understood that more because people are reactionary. They'd seen the way Texas won against A&M and the way Georgia struggled against Tech. I think in this scenario, people watched, my guess is, people watched Notre Dame and they were like, as it turned out, they had the least impressive performance of the weekend. This is being overwhelmingly nitpicky, but I'm going to say it anyway. I wonder how emotional that game was for Notre Dame playing Indiana. At home, it was different than the other games. I think that, Texas Clemson was just sort of a basic 101 game. I think Penn State, besides the lack of interest from Penn State people or fans, I think that was curious. I think you just look at the ticket prices. People were spending $500 to go to this Indiana Notre Dame game. And, half of Tennessee took over, not half, but 40,000 Tennessee fans or so were at South Bend, were at the Horseshoe. They got 3,500 tickets. They went tenfold and then some over what they were given. That's how desperate they were. Notre Dame, Indiana was, you didn't see a bunch of Indiana people, but the way that it kind of, like, that was a magical night at Notre Dame. Like, I think that's okay. We should be able to say that. And when you have those, that's not always an easy turnaround. Georgia did it in the SEC championship game, but they almost didn't. They almost lost both those games. So I don't know if that carries over to 2 weeks later because, Notre Dame played Friday night. They got about 10 or so days to get ready for, this game with Georgia. Say 12 games. Sorry, my math. But I think that was an important moment in Notre Dame history. And I'll say this too. I wrote this earlier today over a Dawg post. If you're not a member on the site, you should be on our free newsletter. If Notre Dame somehow wins this national championship, they will go, I think it's 15-1. They are already at 12-1. They have the most wins in Notre Dame history. Okay. Georgia's won more than 12 games like multiple times this century. And Notre Dame's won 12 games multiple times this century, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty certain they have, actually. But Georgia's won multiple over 12, and I'm sure Alabama has and all this stuff. But they seem to be on a ride right now, and that's awesome until you got to go do it against a team that is going to physical your ass up. I'm concerned for Notre Dame's. I'm concerned for both these teams and their injury situations. We know Georgia's not playing with their starting quarterback. For Notre Dame, the kid that had the really long run, he had a leap over someone just after that, seemed to tweak something. I don't know where he's at. I don't know if Notre Dame is a private school. They can do whatever they want to do in terms of injury information, and that's what it is. What would concern me more is the big guy in the middle on the defense. That didn't look ideal. And, with Georgia, if Georgia's going to run on you, you will lose. I mean, I don't have the stats in front of me, and I can't easily look it up. But I'll let you know right now, if they're going for 180 on you, or certainly 200, I mean, Kirby's probably like 73-2 in those situations. So, you've got to do that. And the other thing that's so important about that run game situation is Georgia will eat the clock. And if they get up 14 or something, they'll shut it down on you. Like, they will purposely slow the game and just try to get up 17 and say, you can't score 3 times on our defense, let alone in a half. That's what this is my hyperbole, but that's what I would be, concerned about is the big guy in the middle for Notre Dame going to be ready to roll for 60 minutes. I don't know. I don't know, but we got a long way to go before this game. Hey, Merry Christmas. We'll say Happy New Year in the near future. Make sure that Kris Kringle is coming down the chimney. And if he's not, through the side door. Leave cookies.